Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd greatly appreciate you doing so by giving us sending us an email. You can email me at tjh@mindshiftersacademy.org, mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a comment or a question from you through an email, we'll address it on the internet show. And then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And if you're listening on the internet at live.needle.com/mindshiftersradio, we're very glad to have you here, and we appreciate you sharing the time with us. However, if you want to type a comment or raise a hand to be in the phone queue directly, you'll need to download the Needle app from your app store. It's NEDL. It's AI Tuner for live radio. Download the app, log in, answer a few questions, and then you'll have the capacity to type a comment or tap the phone icon and actually talk to us voice to voice. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, either through email or direct comment or call, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be a service, and we are grateful whenever anybody gives us, we'll say, positive direction about how to be more of service to you. had our support group last night. We have support groups on Tuesday and Thursday night. All the information you would need to join us absolutely free in a support group is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. Please remember there's a separate login info page for Tuesday and a separate one for Thursday. Those groups run from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. And we frequently have people who will do a worksheet process in the group and or will listen to one of our favorite teachers like Guy Finley, which is what we did last night, and then have discussion and group process. So if you're looking for some additional support in using these tools and finding out how to get maximum benefit from them, the support groups are an excellent way to do that. I believe I mentioned that yesterday I had done an interview with Carol Look and her new book, The Yes Code, subtitled Transforming Sabotage into Success. And that interview should publish a week from this next Tuesday if all goes well. And we have plenty of time today for comments and questions, answers, testimonials. I will have the app on the phone in front of me, and I will continually check for the comments and callers, because we had quite a bit of difficulty yesterday with people making comments that weren't registering on the phone and people calling and not being able to get through. So we appreciate your patience with the technology, and we're glad you're here. I was just having a conversation with someone about the concepts of faith and hope and fear. And apparently somewhere in the past in one of the archives shows, this person had heard me talk about those three words and was rather confused about it. And so, as I often do when I talk about these things, I begin by talking about how we're using words to point at, to hint at things that go way beyond words. Each new heartbeat. And one of the important things to do whenever you're having a conversation with somebody is making sure that you're all in agreement about what the meaning is of the words you're using. And many, many times when people are in discussions that aren't going well, when they've moved into the realm of an argument or an upset, many times if they slow down and clarify what they mean by certain words and phrases, they'll understand that most of what they're upset about is a misunderstanding. And far more often, people are in agreement about the fundamental perceptions that each of us is making. It's not always the case, but there is a lot of times when people are in these long, drawn-out, emotionally agitated discussions or disagreements, and it's simply a misunderstanding. And if they would clarify the meaning of the words that they're using, they would realize that there's not that much to disagree about, or certainly nothing to be upset about. And one of the things that she was discussing when we were talking about the word faith, I brought up what Dale Allen Hoffman has shared with us a number of times, and that is that the ancient Aramaic had a word that got translated into something in Greek and then something in Latin and something in English. And it comes down to us as the English word of faith. But the original meaning, the original intent in the ancient teaching was acting from the rooted center of your being. In other words, before you take an action, before you spout out words, you clarify, you get in touch with your true nature as this miracle of life expressing in form. You get in touch with the fact that your true nature is love, that you're a spiritual being having a physical experience, however you want to put it. And then from that space, then you take an action. You act in a way that expresses your true nature as a miracle of life expressing in form, or as extending this energy of creation that we call love. And so from that original ancient meaning, the word faith has nothing to do with taking an action based on some blind belief in some statement or principle that has been handed to you from some outside authority figure. And in the word faith from the original meaning is implied action. So you're not just sitting, wishing, and hoping. You're doing something. You're extending whatever you can in terms of thoughts, words, and actions to be a blessing to yourself and others. The other word in the discussion today was hope. And we talked a little bit about how people like Krishnamurti have pointed out for a lot of years, and probably centuries before that, that people have pointed out that in order for me to generate hope, I first have to say that whatever's happening in my life is not good enough. And so there's an aspect of rejecting what's happening. So if you think that God has created the world and has put you in the position that you're in, when you have hope for something other than what's already happening, it means you're saying God's not doing it right, according to you. And so if you just slow down and pay attention to that aspect of having hope, it might lead you to choose differently what you're doing with your mind energy. It might lead you to recognizing that appreciation and gratitude might be a better use of your mind energy than hoping for things to change. You might decide to ask how you can use the life experience as it's unfolding in front of you right now to learn and grow and become more loving and more a more productive multiplier or expander of the life energy that's been given to you and the miracle of life that's expressing in, through, as, and around you in this moment. And so, by digging into these concepts and getting a little bit more consciously focused on what you're doing with your mind energy and what you're pouring your mind energy into in terms of these thoughts or plans or judgments, then you start to understand how you're creating the emotions you're experiencing and the tensions and the upsets that are what you would have thought are just part of your life because, this is what happened. And of course, anybody would feel this way if this happened or that happened. And the fact of the matter is, it's not an of course situation. It's not always that everybody that gets wrongfully imprisoned ends up bitter and defensive and filled with hate. Just yesterday, I was on a call with some people where one of the people on the call relayed a story about yet another person they know who was wrongfully imprisoned in a different country and spent years in the prison until it was finally revealed that he was falsely imprisoned, and then he was just let go. No compensation, no apology, no whatever. And this individual that was being talked about has decided to use that experience as a growth opportunity and to end up creating more good in the world, motivated by his life experience of being falsely imprisoned. So it's a very real thing that we can create our own experience of life. There's the old adage about, when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. Um, so what we're hoping to do with this work is move closer and closer to 100% responsibility for whatever we experience internally in this life. When we interviewed Diederik Wolzak, he takes it to the next level and says he enjoys taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens in his life, even what you might consider the external events. So, just some thoughts before deciding how to take a new direction. We have now finished reading the book by Alan Cohen, what I understand to be his most recent book, Of Course in Miracles. And we read it and done commentary on it, and now we are at liberty to start something else. I am, I have heard the recommendation that we go back and reread or read other parts of the book A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg. We also have things we've dipped our toe into in terms of books like Being Peace from Thich Nhat Hanh and Old Path, White Clouds, also by Thich Nhat Hanh. And so, again, the show is ours to create and to create together. I just checked the comments, even though the app doesn't tell me there's any comments, and it says that one is I make a good point about misunderstanding words. And then Celinda said, how about the yes code? I believe that from my experience of reading the book, The Yes Code, it's a better book for people to read and do the work themselves than it is for us to read on a show like this, because while she's really good at directing us to asking questions, and that's a really big part of what we have observed in this work is much more beneficial than trying to live in belief or from a knowing in a certain sense. And then I think it's Don who says maybe a Jed McKenna book. I have not read any Jed McKenna books. I would have to dig into that and screen it. I've learned, you might say the hard way, that it's really to my benefit to screen things first before sharing them on the internet show or in the support group or recommending books to people. So I will take that into consideration, maybe do a little research and find out what people are saying, unless you've already read a Jed McKenna book that you want to recommend. And then I can pre-screen it before sharing it. And I have up the book, A Walk in the Physical. Now we're sitting here in the middle of March, and we're scheduled to have Christian Sundberg with us for 1 hour of Mindshifters Radio on August 1st. So there's plenty of time. And it's a stretch for some people to consider the story that's in the book A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg. It's really a stretch for some people to believe that we have consciousness that isn't just the byproduct of random neural firings. And there are people who've been deeply rooted in the scientific world, and they have an absolute conviction that we are nothing more than physical beings. Eben Alexander is a gentleman who worked in the medical field and the brain sciences, and he absolutely believed that consciousness was simply the byproduct of random neural firings, until he had his own experience of having such a massive infection in his brain that he was brain dead and he was on life support. And I think it was a 7-day period where the family was deciding, do we leave him on life support? Do we take him off? If we take him off, we keep him on life support, he's going to be nothing but a vegetable, because every indication from the hard science instruments that do brain scans and that, analyze cerebral spinal fluid and all that stuff, we're saying that his brain is shut down and his cerebral spinal fluid has been replaced with pus, infection, white blood cells that are there to fight infection. While that was happening, Eben Alexander had his own, what Michael Ryce would call a near-life experience, what most people would call near-death experience, or his own death experience. And when he came back from that experience into full consciousness and recovered the ability to think and speak and sit up in bed, etc., he was able to tell people about interactions that happened in that hospital while he was brain dead. He was able to tell people about interactions that happened in that hospital that didn't even happen in the room he was in, or the room his body was laying in. He was able to tell them about things that happened down the corridor in another closed office, conversations that people had, people who showed up at the hospital, etc. And it was only after he had an experience like that that he began to question this rigid belief he had that we don't have a spiritual body and we don't have consciousness independent from the physical body. And he wrote a book that you can get. I'll come up with the title of it here in a minute. But Eben Alexander, well, he has more than one book, right? So he was a neurosurgeon, and in 2008 is when he had his brain/spinal column infection and meningitis, and he wrote the book Proof of Heaven, a neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife. And he has other books since then. But so this also speaks to one of our biggest observations here, is that living in questioning and in wide open questioning state is highly preferable to living from belief, living from a conviction. So Mr. Hangy says that the first book that he would recommend by Jed McKenna is Spirituality, the Damnedest Thing. So thank you for that suggestion. I will look into it. And I'll just start here, since there's no other caller online or any other comment. I'll start here by reading the introduction to A Walk in the Physical. Christian writes, "There's far more going on than meets the physical eye." He writes, "I existed before I was human, and so did you. Now that we're here, it's my honor to communicate with you while we are both human, to remind you of what the deeper parts of you already know. I wish to share some of what I've come to understand while being human, so that others may be reminded of our true spiritual nature. I wish to encourage all my brothers and sisters so that we all might more effectively fulfill our divine purposes and grow together towards love. You, dear reader, are a wonderful being of light. You have come to Earth to participate in one of the most ambitious endeavors of creation ever performed. It's my dear hope that these words will stir in you a remembrance of who you really are and help you in your own very meaningful life walk. For though you may or may not be aware of it right now, your life is incredibly meaningful indeed." Some people might be familiar with Abraham, the consciousness Abraham that's channeled by Esther Hicks. And Abraham routinely says, "You here in the physical realm are on the cutting edge of creation." That there are all kinds of consciousness and entities in the physical, but there's even more beyond count and number in the non-physical. And so while we're here and while we are, you might say, burdened with the aches and pains and the restrictions of the physicality and what I believe Christian starts talking about as more and more intense constraint sets, while we're in that realm, it seems intense and painful and exhilaratingly blissful, and we're all over the map with our experiences. And yet, some people, and Christian is going to talk about that in this book, some people have the experience, have the understanding that every bit of that is why we come here. Even the stuff that we say we don't want is a part of what we're looking for and hope to have when we're in the non-physical realm. He would say planning an excursion into the physical realm. And before I go too far into this, I'm prompted to talk about Andrea Gibson. And Andrea Gibson has a spoken word piece that she a spoken word piece that she has for the days I stop wanting a body. And Andrea writes, "Imagine when a human dies, the soul misses the body, actually grieves the loss of its hands and all they could hold. It misses the throat closing when it's shy. It misses reading out loud on the first day of school. Imagine the soul misses the stubbed toe. It misses the loose tooth, the funny bone. The soul still asks, why does the funny bone do that? It's just weird. Imagine the soul misses the thirsty garden cheeks watered by grief. It misses how the body could sleep through a dream. What else can sleep through a dream? What else can laugh? What else can wrinkle the smile's autograph? Imagine the soul misses each falling eyelash, waiting to be wished, misses the wrist screaming away the blade. The soul misses the lisp, the stutter, the limp. The soul misses the holy bruise, blue from that army of blood rushing to the wound's side. When a human dies, the soul searches the universe for something blushing, something shaking in the cold, something that scars. The soul sweeps the universe for patience worn thin, the last nerve fighting for its life, the voice box aching to be heard. What if the soul misses the way the body would hold another body? And not be two bodies, but one, pleading God, doubled in grace. The soul misses how the mind told the body, you have fallen from grace. And the body said, erase every scripture that doesn't have a pulse. There isn't a single page in the Bible that can wince, that can clumsy, that can freckle, that can hunger. Imagine the soul misses hunger. It misses emptiness. It misses rage. Imagine the soul misses the fist that was never taught to curl that curls, the teeth that were never taught to clench that clench, the body that was never taught to make love yet makes love. Like a hungry ghost digging its way out of the grave, what if the soul misses the ever unforever of old age? The skin that no longer fits. What if the soul misses every single day the body was sick? The now it forced, the here it built from the fever. Fever is how the body prays. Fever is how it burns and begs for another average day. What if the soul misses the legs creaking up the stairs? It misses the fear that climbed up the vocal cords to curse the wheelchair. What if the soul misses what the body could not let go? What else could hold on that tightly to everything? What else could hear the chain of a swing set and fall to its knees? What else could touch a screen door and taste lemonade? What else could come back from a war and not come back, but still try to live, still try to lullaby? When a human dies, what if the soul moves through the universe trying to describe how a body trembles when it's lost, softens when it's safe? What if when the soul moves through the universe, it tries to describe how a wound would heal given nothing but time? Do you understand? Nothing in space can imagine it. No comet, no nebula, no ray of light can fathom the landscape of awe, the heat of shame, the fingertips pulling the first gray hair and throwing it away. I can't imagine it, the stars say. Tell us again about goosebumps. Tell us again about pain. Andrea Gibson from 2023. For the days I stop wanting a body. So as we're reading the book A Walk in the Physical, my understanding of it is Christian Sundberg is talking to us about that very process that Andrea Gibson put in her spoken word piece. Christian goes on, back to his book, A Walk in the Physical. My story, he writes, my pre-birth experience. He says, before I tell this story, I think it's very important to say, as I will many times throughout this book, that the higher dimensions cannot be articulated with words. There's simply no language from our world that can possibly fully communicate the nature of the higher realms, the nature of our greater being, or even the nature of the incarnation process that I will attempt to describe below. Our physical universe is a very specific type of experience, and some of the most fundamental assumptions of our universe, assumptions like distance and linear time, for instance, do not apply to many other reality systems. Our language is based on our local assumptions, so it falls very short of being able to speak to the, quote, higher, close quotes, reality. That higher reality transcends our local system entirely. In fact, language is an expression of form, and our true being transcends all form. So as soon as a single word is spoken, we've automatically deviated from the deepest truth. The following is a summary of my pre-birth and post-birth story. I'm only providing a summary because this book is not about my story. Rather, this book is an attempt to describe the joyful truth of our shared spiritual nature and the larger spiritual context in which we all live. I'm simply telling my story so that you may better relate to me. You too may have experienced something similar, and if you do not currently remember it, perhaps my story then will help stir in you a remembrance of where we all come from. You and I are beings of incredible freedom, joy, and love. We are sparks of the living source of all creation. The sparks of the Creator, as sparks of the Creator, our pre-human existence is filled with innumerable joys and adventures. We revel in many forms of creation, learning, expression, and play, many of which cannot even be imagined while we are human, let alone articulated. We engage in all sorts of creative activities and hugely varied experiences. Our being is of the stars and far beyond. We celebrate our existence through the music and the unimaginably beautiful splendors of the heavens. We celebrate the very act of being. And we do so in millions upon millions of amazing ways. That may not sound tangible or specific, but I can think of no other way to attempt to express and to articulate the hugely varied realness of our higher adventures, which transcend this earthly context. One adventure available to us is that we can choose to commit to an experience of separation, contrast, and challenge. One of the ways that we can help expand both our joy and the depth of all creation is by diving deep into this experience of duality, to truly engage in the constraints of physicality. This book is about the why behind that journey. You are taking that meaningful journey right now. Well, the following pre-birth memories that I will attempt to describe do have a sequence, and while some are far more ancient than any earthly memory, they also feel as if they are taking place right now. They're occurring with a simultaneity in the one now, capital N-O-W. I remember being inspired long, long ago by a great being of light who had himself experienced physical incarnations. When I came across this being, I was completely taken aback by the radiance, richness, joy, and power of his, quote, nature, close quotes, or his, quote, essence, close quotes. I could plainly see and feel that essence and that nature. I asked this being what he had done to, quote, become this, close quotes. And he telepathically shared that he had lived physical lifetimes. One in particular was exceptionally difficult for him because he had suffered from a chronic and painful physical condition. But through how he chose to meet that condition and through how he integrated that experience, you might say he refined to a degree that was utterly astounding. I was deeply inspired. I communicated to him definitively, I'm going to do that. He was loving and responded at first something to the effect of, that's what they all say. This is difficult in a way you've never known before. However, I was persistent. He encouraged me to approach my guides if I wished to pursue this path, and I did. Because of that initial inspiration, I set out to embark on the long journey of physical lifetimes to refine the quality of my own being and increase my capacity for joy, creativity, and love. I've had many, many experiences since then. I remember when the creation of this universe was being initiated. I remember the joy of being in knowing that, quote, from on high, close quotes, that this creation, our universe, was being issued forth for us and also by us as a new and fantastically rigorous level of expansion. I was not present at the moment of its creation. I arrived, in quotes, soon after, close quotes. Though, as I will mention, time is not at all the same there as it is here. And I sailed joyfully among the stars and the galaxies. I was full of bliss and profound excitement that here in this place we could actually get to be and experience being in a different way. These creatures of flesh and more. What an absolutely amazing opportunity for all of creation. What an absolutely amazing opportunity for the expansion of being through direct experience. Long, long after that, before incarnating as Christian, but after many other experiences, I prepared for the next steps of my journey. Over the course of my physical incarnations, I had been people, and I had engaged certain extremes. Now, I really wanted to experience a certain significant, quote, distance, close quotes, from source, capital S source. And I wanted to have the opportunity to confront and heal a specific, extremely deep fear. A certain deep, low experiential vibration that had been very difficult for me in the past. That fear had, quote, bested me, close quotes, in a previous life. And through it, I had caused significant pain and distress for many others in that earlier lifetime. I was not a nice person in that lifetime. Working through to the end of it, my fear had caused me to suffer an agonizing physical death. I was terrified as I lay there dying, suffocating under the weight of not only of my physical pain, but also this terrible fear. Though it's beyond naming, the fear was something to the effect of, quote, I am powerless to avoid agony, close quotes. And that was mixed with, quote, I am too proud to suffer, close quotes. Long after that death, from the higher spiritual vantage point of complete freedom, power, and joyful excitement, I decided to confront that fear again. And I knew that to do so would be a truly incredible opportunity for personal and collective expansion. Yet the task seemed daunting. The fear seemed so deep, so dark, that I wondered if it was even possible to confront such a low vibration. From the glory and the freedom of the realms of light, I asked my guides if it was even possible to integrate such a low vibration. And I asked, has this ever been done in all of creation by anyone, ever? And they replied joyfully, yes, and you have all time available to you to do so. So I set the intention, and that led me from where I was to where I am today. However, my current lifetime as Christian was not my first choice for this purpose. In fact, I selected a different human life first. So I'm going to take a breath and ask for comments or questions or a hand up. We've got about 10 minutes left before a more traditional handoff will happen between this hour and the next hour with Michael and Jeanie. And I'm curious as to the 6 or 7 people who are listening, if this is resonating with you, if this is stirring up things for you, if your brain is even integrating some of the thoughts that bubble up when people start talking about things that go way beyond words. What's the point of even talking about things that can't actually be expressed in words? So comments, questions, answers, testimonials, whether you type it into the app or you tap the phone icon to get put in the phone queue. Keep our fingers crossed that technology is working better today than it was yesterday. So because I can't know, and one of my favorite lines from way back in high school was, I can't know what I don't know. And because that's the truth, what I've learned over the years is it's highly, highly preferable for me to be living in the question, to be actively asking moment to moment, what's mine to do here? How can I be a blessing to myself and others? Rather than judging a situation as bad or wrong, can I just ask, how might in this situation I be able to add something loving? Jane has put in the chat room or in the comments, after giving birth to my daughter, I had a near-death experience and experienced quite a lot of awareness that shocked doctors and family. You're not alone, Jane. There are a number of good books out there. Anita Morjani is another one. Dying to Be Me, I believe, is the title of her book. And so Evan Alexander's book and Anita Morjani's book were 2 books I got introduced to very close to each other in proximity. And as I said, Evan Alexander's book is titled Proof of Heaven, a neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife. Anita Moorjani, if you're not familiar with her book, she had cancer and tumors, large tumors all over her body. And she finally went to the hospital and they basically just said, we can make you comfortable while you die. And she had this vivid, deep, rich experience outside the physical and went through the choice to either stay there in the non-physical and let the body go, or to come back and heal the body. And to the amazement of the medical doctors who think about everything as just physical, the tumors melted away and she recovered fully. And it's not that unusual a story. If you do the research and start looking for people who've had these kinds of experiences and read their books and or listen to their interviews on YouTube, it'll open a whole new world of possibility for you. So thank you for sharing that, Jane. And thank you to the rest of you for hanging out and listening and being around for this ride. I'm not sure, how far we'll go into this, but I wanted to bring this to the surface since we have the opportunity to talk directly with Christian. And I had about a half an hour conversation with him a few weeks ago in setting up his upcoming appearance in Mindshifters Radio that will be on August 1st. And I just have to say it was a very easy, comfortable conversation. I think he's got lovely energy, and I think it'll be a delight to have him for an hour of conversation and questions. So please, if you're the kind of person who does this, make some notes about your questions, write them down, keep a list of them, and send them to me or bring them to the show on August 1st, so you're not struggling to remember at the last minute when the excitement can get high. So we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. I'm just going to read a little bit more here since no one has a hand up that I can tell, and no one is in the queue for a call. Christian writes, when we come to have a physical lifetime, we have to accept a set of consciousness constraints that we as humans call simply the veil. The veil is an important and necessary part of the incarnation process. In order to actually be human and to have the full physical experience, we need to forget all of everything else that we are. I just got the image of an adult who walks into a room where there are single-digit children playing with the dollhouse and a ranch set up. So there's cowboys and horses, little plastic horses and little plastic people, and yes, the adult can join in this creative playtime with the dollhouse and the ranch setup and the auto mechanic shop and the little plastic cars, and can creatively create for themselves an experience that is a fantasy and an imagining. And yet my experience as an adult will be dramatically different from these single-digit children playing. And their level of imagination is probably more deep and rich and full-bodied than I can create as an adult in that scene. And yet the children are just imagining and pretending. They're not actually living as the little plastic men and women and animals. And so in order to have that, we have to forget that we're just playing and that this is all pretend. We have to step into an actual forgetting of the physical realm and the non-physical realm and the connection in order to really be in the constraint sets. So he talks about the consciousness constraints. And so this mechanism of the veil, of the deep amnesia and forgetting, is critical. Otherwise, we're not going to get an experience coming into the physical that's too much different than the experience we have today if we go and we're in a movie theater and watching images on the screen. Yeah, occasionally somebody jumps out and we're startled, but there's a whole level at which we know deep in our bones that it's all just pretend. And so we aren't living through what the characters on the screen are actually living through. So if you're coming from the non-physical into the physical, if you're actually going to have an experience that can challenge you to expand and grow, you've got to have that forgetting. You've got to have that veil. And you can't be conscious that, oh, it's all just a game and it's all for fun and play. Because if you have that experience, it's not as challenging. It doesn't cause you to grow. It's like going into the gym and lifting fake weights. You're not going to build very much muscle. It doesn't matter that the barbell is, loaded with these styrofoam weights on the end that look really heavy, and they're written with words that say 1,000 pounds. It doesn't matter what it says on it if you actually can just lift it like a light styrofoam bar, then you're not going to build the muscle. And that's how I try to understand for myself what Christian is talking about as needing to be in complete amnesia about where we come from and where we're going back to in order to actually grow and strengthen our capacity for experience at different levels here in the physical realm. So I just looked at the clock and realized we're down to a minute, so I will remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Michael and Jeanie should start up another show right away. Thank you for being here. Blessings.